Okay. Good evening, everyone. It is now 6:30. Call into order the Board of Directors of Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1. All directors are present, and we have a quorum. Citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to address the board on any matter, whether or not it's posted on the agenda. The board is not permitted to take action or discuss any comments made to the board at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. The board will hear comments on specific agenda items prior to the board addressing those items. You may speak up to 4 minutes or the time limit determined by the president or presiding officer. To speak during this item, you must complete a speaker form that includes the topic of your statement. Citizens' comments should be limited to matters of which the board has authority. Are there any citizen comments?
No, sir.
Seeing none, we shall proceed. Consent agenda. All matters listed as consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Directors and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be a separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. 1, consider and take appropriate action to approve consent agenda. A, January 2020 check register. B, January 2020 regular meeting minutes. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, we have a motion by Director Chapman to approve the consent agenda as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Secretary Treasurer Flynn. All in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. We will now enter into regular session. Item number 2, consider and take appropriate action regarding approval of Fourth Amendment to Independent Contract Agreement with John Carmen for consulting services.
I'll take this one on. This is an amendment to the independent contractor agreement between the district and Carmen relating to his services as general manager. The agreement's intended to reflect my understanding of the board's direction last meeting, and in particular, limit Carmen services to specific projects, those identified, and as may be added from time to time to facilitate, and that Mike would kind of assume the role of interim or acting general manager. So that's the purpose of this document.
Vice President Rose.
I move to ratify the Fourth Amendment to the Independent Contractor Agreement.
Wow.
Can I suggest that it be ratify and approve?
Okay, ratify and approve.
Okay, we have a distinguished motion by Vice President Rose to ratify and approve the Fourth Amendment to the Independent Contract Agreement for John Carmen. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Director Chapman. Any discussion?
What are we changing, or are we updating it, or what's the issue?
If you go to page 3, it specifically calls out the duties that is being targeted for Carmen and any other things as suggested by Mike, and then it points him as the acting general manager.
And we're not changing anything. The wording was just to reflect that there's actually a date prior to today's meeting, so Bill's motion
Okay,
was
I'm
just
sorry,
to
I was looking at the scope of services, and that's not what you're talking about. It's okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
No. The reason for the ratify was that it's a signed document.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 3, consider to take appropriate action to authorize staff to issue a request for qualifications from qualified contractors to prepare a water wastewater facility master planning risk and resiliency assessment to begin on October 1st, 2020 as part of the fiscal year 2021 capital projects. General Manager
So I will speak to this a
McMahon?
little bit. So this is something that Carmen pushed forward a little bit to, we do have budget in our 2021 budget for master plan for water and wastewater. I would like to change this up a little bit in that we do need another engineering firm on staff. CPNY is pretty busy with the wastewater plant. We're keeping half pretty busy with our GIS and our 16-inch water line. We need another just general engineering company to come in for other requests. I've got water line replacements to do, just miscellaneous stuff that the other two engineers may not have time for. So this is going all the way out to 2021. So at that time, hopefully some of these projects will be finished up, and I think at that time we could put out an RFQ to the three engineering companies we will have access to at that time and see which one best would fit this part.
Mike,
Are-
can you give me a timeline on this?
On, as far as going out for the RFQ, it's something we would like to do pretty fast
For
I
the
mean,
third, for the
for the
third.
third engineering firm.
So if I heard you correct, so you don't per se want to do a RFQ simply for a contractor to prepare the water, wastewater facility management, facility master planning assessment. You want to simply modify this to put a RFQ out for a third engineering firm,
That's correct.
period.
That's correct.
I think what we're talking about is probably tabling this and you bring back an
I mean, I
RFQ
can.
for another engineering firm.
Yeah, that would make the most sense.
Okay, but
Does anyone
no.
have any
I-
disagreement
I-
with that
this
approach?
was something
Yeah,
that Carmen
I'd rather do
was on
that.
Carmen's
that's
list
quite
of
a bit
duties to
different.
do.
Okay, well, we'll consider that closed, and then that effort closed, then you bring back a new,
So, I'm sorry, just to clarify, you would like to have the resources of a third engineering firm available to staff?
Not just
Right, so
channeled to these items.
with respect to this study, does staff desire for an RFQ process to go forward?
I think once we bring another engineering firm, we would put an RFQ out to the three engineering firms that are approved for us to use and see which one comes back with the best qualifications to do our risk and resiliency.
So,
and
so it's two
master
separate
plan.
issues, Tony, is what I'm
Mhm.
hearing. Bring on a third firm in general for projects, this being one, but first thing first is
And I don't
potentially
wanna
bring on a
limit,
third
I don't
firm.
wanna just go out for an engineering company just for these things. We need another general engineering firm just to handle.
I understand that, I'm not, if we have to do this, I'm not sure why you couldn't proceed with this and just send it to more than the two that are currently on staff available.
Well, we could, but then we may end up with 4 engineering firms.
12 could submit proposals, do we care?
No, but we're only gonna pick one. I mean, this way, I would think that, you know, at that point, the 3 that we have, and this is for 2021 capital projects anyhow, so we do have some time. I mean, we can still move forward with the RFQ, but I will bring back,
Okay, so it's your desire, and I was just trying to clarify, just
Mhm.
to put this on hold until, and you want to select a universe of 3 engineering firms and then go out to them as a pool for each project?
we would put this back out to the 3 engineering firms that we have.
so is it your fear that you could end up with a engineering firm to do this, that would, but not one that you would want to count as a generic engineering firm, so therefore you would end up having this work been done by a firm that's not one of our authorized engineering firms? Is that your concern?
That is my concern. One of them that may not have a lot of pipeline replacement experience, sewer line replacement experience, or that are just working on master plans, risk and resiliency
But,
assessments.
but that brings up a bigger question in that, does that mean that going forward, if we do have a third firm on board, that we're only gonna go to those 3 firms on projects?
Okay, so right now, we can only go to 2 firms on projects. That's CPNY and Half and Associates. 'Cause
Yeah,
that's the
so-
only 2 approved engineers that the board has approved.
So in order to get someone to do work, they have to be authorized by the district, and so far it's half and, yeah. So like if we wanted a different attorney, then we have to go find a different attorney, like when Tony recommended a different firm to handle some other work we were doing. We had to go out and specifically appoint another attorney to do that work. So therefore, we tend to get firms, get the contract in place, so when you need something done, you don't have that administrative work to establish the relationship. Vice President Rose?
My question would revolve around expertise. Is there a possibility that if we went out and found a third firm, that neither of the three firms would be as good as a fourth firm who might specialize in this type of work?
That is a possibility.
So then, my question then becomes, would we be better off to do this as well as what you suggest with the third firm?
I don't think there would be a problem with that at all.
Okay.
I have a question. On the last engineering study we did, we came back, in that they came back with a number of assumptions and some prices. Then we went out and attempted to do some work at the prices that they identified, and those were they were not anywhere near accurate. So by the time you figure out that the firm you hired as a third or fourth firm is not any good, then now you don't have them to go back to, especially if you hired them to do a particular project like this study. So if 6 months later you do something on that study, you have to engage them again to get them to come back before the board. I would think if we hired a good firm, they would be able to do assessment. If they couldn't do an assessment, then I probably would question whether or not they're the right firm to have the relationship with at all. I think you lose some accountability by hiring someone to do assessment and then having someone else do the work, because now they're relying on someone else's work.
I guess the biggest problem I have with this is the beginning date on October 1st, 2020. I think we will have a need for an engineering firm before that,
For this scope or for other scopes?
for other scopes.
Okay.
So I think what I'm hearing is the board supports staff going out and making sure they have multiple engineering firms available for them, and staff can kind of go do the legwork to bring that back to you. With respect to this individual project, I think the question is whether we want to wait for that and just go out to those three, or send out a solicitation to more firms, because this is a unique project, or for other reasons.
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue.
I guess, Mike, has it been your experience that the engineering firms, would you feel comfortable, let's say if half had all the bandwidth in the world, or CPNY had all the bandwidth in the world, would you have any concerns with either one of them doing this study?
I think both of them can do this study.
If you had a third firm and that third firm for some reason couldn't, which would really concern me, but if they couldn't, could they offload some of the work from the other two firms over to the third firm and allow them to do this assessment?
I don't think that would be an issue. I think they would be able to offload. I mean, as far as that would be up to staff to say, hey, we're gonna push more of these projects towards you because we want this firm to, concentrate on this.
So you're just giving yourself a bigger bandwidth as far as,
And most firms that are decently sized, I don't think they're gonna have an issue with any of the things that are on here to do.
So I think I'm hearing from staff a preference to secure the third full firm and then solicit proposals for this project from them and for other projects on an as-needed basis.
Does anyone have a problem with tabling it and going back with the approach of just acquiring a third firm? Any objection?
No. I would say that when I get to that point, though, I might be somewhat open to a wider broadcast than just the three firms.
I'm fine with tabling it.
I'm fine with it.
Okay? Like a motion?
Do we need one to table it?
No,
We don't
we can
have to
just take
table
no
it.
action. We
Okay.
don't have a motion to begin with. Yep.
All right. Number 4. Item number 4, presentation and discussion regarding hardness and turbidity in district water lines.
So last month, we were asked to give some information on hardness and turbidity. So I put together a little bit of information. Hopefully it'll cover what everybody wanted, but we will see. So the causes of water hardness. I don't know if everybody can see that. Water hardness is actually caused by naturally occurring mineral content, calcium and magnesium specifically. There is no health risk regarding hard water. Hard water is more of a nuisance, mineral buildup, poor soap, detergent performance. You know, I'm sure everybody maybe has seen on their ice maker or something, they've got some of that white residue around their faucets. I know at my house, I have really, really hard water. I see it all the time. Water hardness is measured in milligrams per liter or parts per million. The results in our system range from 118 to 162. So if you look down through here, soft 0 to 17, slightly hard 17.1 to 60, moderately hard 60 to 120. I mean, we're in the moderately hard to hard water. So hard water can be mitigated in several different ways. Homeowners can add water softeners or small RO systems that will reduce their water hardness. Utilities can also add an RO system, which is very costly. I mean, millions of dollars. Chemical softening, lime soda ash, caustic soda can also be added, which is also expensive to add that, and will also shorten your pipe life expectancy as you're making a more corrosive water going through your pipes, which is eating up your pipes.
So Mike, how is that done?
You're just adding chemicals. What will probably be in our tanks here. We'll probably have to put mixers in our tanks and actually feed soda ash, lime, anything like that.
What would the cost of doing something like that be?
To put the system, I mean, you're looking at multi-millions. And it's not even upfront cost, then you're married to that cost. Every day you're going to be adding chemicals to that also. And then you're going to be doing a lot more pipe replacements because all of your cast iron pipes that we have, anything like that, they're going to just eat them up. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight or anything like that, but instead of a pipe lasting 20 years, it may only last 10.
Does it have an equal impact on non-cast iron pipes? So like PVC
PVC, it's probably going to last longer because it's plastic. It's going to take a little bit of that corrosion a little bit better than, say, a ductile iron pipe. So it will last longer. And then I also wanted to add on this that if we were to change any, if we were to add chemical lime softening RO system, anytime you change any treatment procedure, you have to have TCEQ approval for that. So that is for hard water. So we're going to move on to turbidity.
Hey, Mike, I'm sorry. Can
Okay.
we go back? Go back 2 slides if you would, please. So at what point does TCEQ say, or do they, hey, you've got a problem? I mean, I can read the hard, the very hard. Are there guidelines where we reach any given point, we have to act or not?
I've never heard of TCEQ coming in and say your water's too hard, you need to do something.
So is there a regulation that regulates the hardness of water? Is that a measurement that we're required to report to TCEQ?
So we're required to report it on our CCR. We're not required to report any water hardness to TCEQ.
So it's not something that they measure or
No.
count as far as the quality of water that's delivered as part of the service?
Nope.
Do we have
Nothing, no.
any idea how our water quality as measured by hardness compares to South Lake, any other local places?
Okay, so we do buy most of our water from Fort Worth. Most of our CCR numbers come from Fort Worth, so they are going to be almost exactly the same.
Do you know of any other districts that treat for hardness of their water?
I'm not aware of any around the area.
Every place that I've lived, it's up to the individual homeowner to
Yeah, I
mitigate this,
I
not,
have a-
not the,
yeah, I have a water softener
Yeah.
and last home as well.
they're not cheap for individuals, but they're cheaper than,
$3,000 or $4,000.
yeah. It's cheaper than trying to put multi-million-dollar systems in.
I think one of the problems, Mike's talked about cast iron pipe, but I think another problem with pushing soft water through our system is that it frees up lead and copper as it goes through those substances. And so as you go to the end user and do a sample, you're going to have a larger amount of lead in your line. If there's any lead soldering along the line in that line, it leaches it out.
So the pH is actually acidic, so it's gonna dissolve and bring other nastiness into the home. I mean,
Yeah.
Correct. I mean, and it can be from their faucet. I mean, it has nothing to do with us. It can be in the homeowner's faucet, the homeowner's pipes. We're still gonna get dinged for it.
Yeah. And when we do the samples, and they take it at the house, and so
And I
that
will
goes
tell you-
into the report.
I will tell you, I've been to the Fort Worth meetings and I've seen some webinars that are coming out, TCEQ. Actually, I think it's coming from EPA. They are tightening up on the lead and copper rules. Specifically, schools is one of the ones that's coming.
Like you had a question.
Well, I
comment?
do, because of all, I've been on the board here 2+ years or whatever it is. Of all the comments, questions, complaints I get, it's this, from my neighbors. Again and again and again. So we know the data. We know what our options are, which are not a lot, really. So it's back to your comments about incumbent being on the homeowner. But is there any way we can do a better job of, or do anything, communicating, answering the question to the extent that we can, giving him some statistics? I mean, this would scare people if they saw that, I get that. But somehow I don't think we do a good enough job communicating what the options are to the homeowner, best practices, whatever that might, talk points, me and talk points, which for 2 years I've been trying to get talk points on stuff and I haven't done it yet, but one day. But these are things homeowners are looking for.
But I think that's the very purpose of doing this, to make this information publicly available so that if people have questions, I don't know if we can make these slides available to those that request it or post it on the website if we have a way to post certain collateral. So if the question comes up, then we can refer people back to this.
Okay, but it doesn't answer the question. The question is, it answers the question of, okay, here's what the data says. I'm looking for something that says, so, Mr. Homeowner, Mrs. Homeowner, these are the things you can do that we would recommend. These are best practices, because that's what they're looking for.
Well, I think that answer people know. It's what everyone does when you have hard water. You buy a water softener. I don't think it's an issue where anyone is sitting back saying, wow, I don't know how to resolve the issue. The issue is, I know for me, I knew I didn't want to deal with the hard water, the results from it, so I got a water softener. I did it when I bought the house. I think everyone knows the answer. I think some people would say, well, it's the district's responsibility to soften the water. And I think this explains why it's not done.
I think if you go to any of the surrounding communities that uses Fort Worth water, you go to South Lake, you go to Keller, Watauga, all of those, it's all gonna be the same.
I know I came from Frisco. We had hard water. So I don't think I haven't last place I lived, other than around this area, is 20 years ago in Nebraska. But I don't recall what the water was like then, but I pretty much always had to get a water softener.
We used water softener in Bellevue, in Nebraska.
Yeah. I couldn't afford hard water when I was doing that time.
Yeah, so, I will mention, but I don't have the data, I don't have a hard copy with me. I did some research, just a little bit of Googling out to try and find out what a system would cost to demineralize our water. And what I found would have required us to build something like 8 trains of these units, like we have trains at the wastewater, we'd had trains for fresh water. And each train was gonna cost, one place I saw, between $5 and $10 million. And it was like, I just staggered away in shock. I can't do that and have somebody put that on a lawn. I mean,
Well, I mean,
the cost is just untenable.
well, at that price, it'd be cheaper to just have the district buy every homeowner a water softener,
Yeah.
and that costs $12 million. That's the cost of 2 trains.
Yeah.
Or a bottle of CLR to every household,
Yeah,
make it cheaper.
it's just,
I think that's why most people don't do water softening themselves, because especially in the summertime, I mean, you're putting more water on your yard than you are in your house. You know,
Well,
so you're softening all that water for your lawn when really you want it through your pipes in your house.
the system, I believe my system that I've had, the system I had in Bellevue, only softened the water in the house. In other words, the sprinkler system is picked off way before it gets to the softener, so.
But this is, guys, a good example. We're telling them in this slide, and I appreciate the work, we're telling them what they already know. The water's too damn hard, or in their opinion. We're not telling them, I don't think, what we can do. Bill, that's a good point. People know they can buy water softeners, but do they know they can do it at a certain point in the house where
Yeah.
it won't water the lawn? I mean, these are things that I
the
think
other-
we
the
can
other
be
thing is-
communicating if,
There is-
somehow.
There is an associated cost with having a water softener in your house. Most of them run with salt tablets. And so every so often, you need to replenish those salt tablets. Well, I don't think you want to put that water after it's been worked through the salt on the lawn, for one thing. And the other thing, your cost would be much greater if you're using conditioned water to go in your grass. So, yes, I'm pretty sure the systems can be put in just for the house.
I think most of them are designed that way.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because they normally put in the garage or, I mean, in the attic, or like mine, it's in the garage. And so it cleans it at the point it enters the house. To be honest with you, Steve, I think where you and I disagree, I don't think people don't understand this. They understand this. It's a matter of, there are people who feel like I shouldn't have to pay for this. It's the district's job to pay for it.
I don't disagree with that statement, Greg, but I think it's a universal statement where you're saying everybody understands it. I don't think that's the case. The people I've talked to said, why can't the mud fix this? Why can't the mud? So it goes back to, we can tell them the data, but I don't think everybody universally of the 13,000 residents here know that the answer is, you gotta buy a water softener.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry if they're that naive or that uninformed. They really should, there's a thing called Google, or, even talk to a commercial company that does this kind of work. They will tell them what it is, and
In the quotes I've seen where this has come up, the first thing people tell them is you need to go buy a water softener. So I agree with you, not everyone knows, but as soon as you bring it up on Facebook, within 5 minutes, you got 10 people telling you, you need to go buy a water softener. But if you like, speaking to the mic and tell people, you need to go buy a water softener.
I think you just did.
Okay. Turbidity.
Back to the, yeah.
Okay, so we're moving on to turbidity. Turbidity is a measure of the degree of which water loses its transparency due to the presence of suspended particles such as clay, silt, and other organic material. So I'll explain that a little bit. So when you have turbidity in your water, say you've got a UV disinfection like we do at the wastewater plant, We filter our water really, really well. But if you're not filtering your water as well, and you've got little particles in there, when you're sending it through that UV light, that light's not passing through everything. So the EPA requires us to produce water with a turbidity measuring no higher than 0.3 nephelometric turbidity units. So if we were a place that was pulling out of, say, a river or a lake or somewhere like that, most of them people, they'll use coagulants, flocculants, polymers, which basically binds all of those all the turbidity together, and they settle that out of the water. So I've been on tours at a lot of Fort Worth plants. Right when they come in and everything, they do a lot of flocculants, coagulants, a lot of synthetic polymers, where everything in that water will coagulate together, settle out, and then they discharge it. Okay, so particles are settled down, removed from water. Filtration is the last step in turbidity removal. So usually a rapid sand filter or something like that to get all of those real fine particles out. Tank inspection and cleaning to keep turbidity levels down. I know here at the district, we inspect our tanks every year. Every other year, we do a full drain and washout of our tanks. The range of turbidity levels detected in TC mud water are the 0.12 to 0.22 NTUs, which is well within acceptable range for drinking water.
And you say the limit by TCEQ is 0.3?
0.3, that is the maximum. After that, they're gonna come knock on your door and say, hey, you need to spend some money and do something.
Okay.
So that is all I have. Comments, questions?
Thank you for an excellent briefing. And I think we can, if the slides can be made up and put in a section on the website where they can just click on it and here's, hard water discussion. I think that'd be beneficial. Thank you.
Anything further on item number 4?
Do they make, I notice we have, we have all kinds of pamphlets and that stuff at the thing. Do they make a little
I'm sure we can get some pamphlets on water hardness
hard
if you
water
would
and
like.
put it out there for people to come visit?
Maybe one that would include things that residential homeowners can do to resolve it? Do you think something like that would exist?
I'm sure we can look into it and find out.
I appreciate that.
See what we can bring back.
Perfect.
Well, one of the things I can just relate to a little bit, now that they're putting those new kind of water heaters, those instant ons, this is a big problem for those kind of systems. If they don't put a water softener in front of one of those, they've got a life expectancy of months.
So we have had numerous calls on those, and we basically tell them anymore to go on YouTube because there's a way to take those apart, clean out all your buildup in those. And usually they call because they do have buildup coming through their waters, and it is from those tankless water heaters.
But the people who install those things should have given them a maintenance and this is what you need to do to keep that down. But
Yeah, and I'm sure when you bought your house, you went through all those little maintenance books and kept all those notes, right?
I'm an engineer. You should.
Oh, that's right, you
you're
did.
darn tootin'.
You and Bill did. The rest of us just chucked it somewhere.
I don't know. I've got all the manuals for every device in that house.
I do too. They got dust on them about that big.
And now you know where all the turbidity comes from.
From all that dust.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. Rose wants to.
You talked about the instant hot water, the waterless tanks. I will tell you that I have an electric hot water tank.
The waterless tanks?
Yeah, they are tankless hot water heaters.
Okay, I was about to
Waterless
say, if you,
tanks.
I'd love one of those. If you
Yeah,
could
tankless
get
hot
water
wa,
from the water.
tankless hot water heaters. Okay, but I have an electric tank, large one. And what I have found is that I get the mineral deposits built up on the heating element in the tank. And those then flake off and fall to the bottom of the tank. If I don't clean the tank over time, eventually it sucks it back up into my line, into the house. And if you look at the hot water manual, you'll find most of those say you're supposed to drain those tanks either once a year or a certain frequency, depending upon how hard your water is. So just another thing for homeowners to be
I
aware of.
turn mine out turn mine off and flush it every year. It comes right off the little flush valve.
Yep.
In
I think most recommendations are every 6 months.
6 months, yeah.
Draining the one up in the attic, I'm not gonna do every 6 months. Once a year is enough chance for me.
Okay, but I just wanted
Put
to
it
make
in the
that point.
brochure that we're gonna put together.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on.
All right, item number 5, consider and take appropriate action to approve joint election agreement and contract for election services with Denton County for May 2nd, 2020 general election. Staff?
Sorry.
Lori?
She was researching turbidity.
We don't have the final cost for this yet. We just need to get it back to the county that we are entering into a joint contract with them for our May 2nd general election, for them to conduct the election. The cost will come back after the election, once we know everyone who has,
How much does it normally cost? Do you recall generally?
so our last election, we were able to cancel, is my recollection, and we budgeted, what, 5,000, Stephen, this year?
So we're gonna have the amendment, yes, move 5,000.
5,000?
Correct.
That's what we've got budgeted.
They have
Well, it
had to
isn't
buy
budgeted yet, though, is right?
It'd be an
lots of
amendment,
new
correct.
equipment this year for this election, so we will be incurring some of that cost. Every time they change software, buy something new, it does get spread out through that year, through those elections, so we'll find out.
Vice President Rose?
I move to approve the joint election agreement and contract for election services with Denton County for the May 2nd, 2020 general election.
We have a motion by Vice President Rose to approve the joint election agreement and contract for election services with Denton County for the May 2nd, 2020 general election. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Director Castonway. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate, raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Okay, item number 6. Consider and take appropriate action to adopt order 2020-0217 Alpha, declaring the following operations, equipment, and vehicle to be surplus property of the district and authorizing staff to sell such surplus property. Truck number 102-2012 Ford F-250 King Cab pickup truck with 71,600 miles and that was purchased on February 7th, 2012. B, 2020 Dodge truck bed. C, 2 automatic transfer switches. Staff?
So we're asking the directors to sell all this surplus property and authorize us to do so. The 102-2012 F-250, that truck was replaced this year. We just got the new 2020 vehicle decal today. The 2020 Dodge truck bed actually came off of our new vehicle because we had to put a work bed on it. And the 2 automatic transfer switches were left over from the VFD upgrade because they consolidated those into one bigger new transfer switch.
Mike, how much did we pay for the 2020 truck bed?
So it came with the truck.
Oh, came with it, so you're just gonna get
We
rid of
bought a
it?
utility bed, so we no longer need this bed.
Is the truck A, is it a diesel?
It is not. We do have one diesel down there. It's a 2015 Ford F-350.
Entertain a motion.
I have a legal question. We're on page 29, or 39, you're probably already there. Section 4 says the general manager is hereby authorized. Do I need to change that to say acting general manager?
Is Mike's title officially acting?
I believe so.
I didn't catch that.
In the document,
It can only help, so.
Okay. I have a motion. I move to approve Order 2020-0217A, order declaring property surplus and authorizing sale thereof with the change in section 4, changing the words "the general manager" to "the acting general manager."
Okay, we have a motion by Vice President Rose to approve and adopt order number 2020-0217 Alpha, declaring those three items surplus equipment and modifying section 4 by adding acting in front of general manager.
Second.
Second by Secretary Treasurer Flynn. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 7, consider and take appropriate action regarding fiscal year 2020 through 2022 audit services. A, authorize staff to issue a request for proposal for auditing services from qualified auditors. B, appoint 2 directors to serve on the audit committee to review proposals and develop recommendations to the board for a selection of a auditor. Staff?
I'll take this one. So we are at the time now where our 5-year agreement with our current auditors has ended this last fiscal year. We are now going out for an RFP to be able to get a new auditor. Planning on doing a 3-year with an additional 1 year for 2 years, up to 5 years basically, for the RFP. What we like to do is have if the board would like to have a committee, because once we go out for the RFP, it'd be nice to, since the auditor is very important, to have them have some input on what auditor we go with going forward. So as staff, we thought it would be a good idea to go ahead and get the board members involved with it and to help pick out the auditor here.
Anybody have an idea who they'd like to appoint? Anyone who don't want to serve on the committee? Director Castanway?
I would not like to serve on this committee. However, I would like to see Flynn and Rose on this committee.
I was going to defer to Chapman.
I'll do it.
There we go.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I was going to defer to Rose.
It sounds like everybody's playing past, the hot potato or something.
I'll do it.
Thank you.
Will you make the motion? Was that too much to ask?
Well, you already got me in there, I might as well make the motion. I move to appoint for the fiscal years 2020 through 2022 audit services, Directors Chapman and Flynn to be on the committee, which is for auditing services. A, authorize staff to issue requests for proposal, and B, 2 appointees, as I mentioned before, Directors Flynn and Chapman.
Okay, we have a motion by Secretary Treasurer Flynn to appoint Secretary Treasurer Flynn and Director Chapman to the Audit Committee to review the proposals for the fiscal year 2020 to 2022 RFP for services, auditing service from qualified auditors.
Second.
We have a second by Director Chapman. Any discussion?
I need some clarification
On?
on the term. Is this are these 2 directors function to only determine the input there for selection of an auditor, or are they to also do the standard audit committee responsibilities annually?
So this would just be to review the
proposals.
proposals that we have, and then our staff, we're gonna be bringing it back to the board for the full authority and awarding of the contract in June.
Bring it back for,
Okay,
Yeah.
I just
tried to clarify that
I just wanted to
I
make sure,
noticed
so I'm
the
not sure. the-
question, Mr. Rose, came up after the election of the officers. Well played.
I just want to make sure that the motion that the motion is clear in that that you're only restricted to those things.
Yes,
I mean-
the audit committee for those 2 individuals were appointed to review proposals and development recommendations
Okay.
for the board of directors for selection
Okay.
of the auditors, not to serve for 3 years on the audit committee.
Gotcha.
Thank God.
Any other discussion?
Nope, I just want to be clear.
And as staff, what we're recommending is we'll have everything turned in by May, and then have the meeting with the committee in May, and then be able to take this to the June board for approval. That way we'll have it in plenty of time, ready to go for the next fiscal year.
And I recommend a very exhaustive discussion during that June meeting.
You get yours.
You can tell who's leaving, you know, he's
Okay, so-
just pushing.
As I understand the motion at this point, we've taken care of, this motion takes care of 7B.
It also takes care of A, because it was also authorized staff to issue the RFP for
Which is
the
what I-
auditing services.
Is what I proposed to begin with.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm good. I
Any
missed
other
it.
discussions?
No.
Hearing none, everyone understand what's been voted on? All in favor indicate by raising your hand.
Yeah.
Motion passes unanimously. Okay, item number 8. Consider and take appropriate action regarding approval of interlocal agreement with the Texas Department of Transportation, the City of South Lake for the reimbursement of costs relating to the relocation of district infrastructure located at Kirkwood Boulevard and 114. Staff?
We were approached by some TxDOT representatives to relocate a sewer line that is in the Solana area. It would actually be on the north side of 114 in front of the TD Ameritrade. They're putting in some off-ramps there. I'm not sure exactly what all they're doing, but I know they're putting in service roads going all the way up to Dove Road, and our sewer line was in conflict with that. South Lake also has a sewer line in this area that's in conflict, so they are wanting to relocate our facilities at no cost to us, basically have South Lake bid the job. TxDOT will actually send us the money for the relocations. South Lake will send us a bill for it, and we'll pay them. We've sent this to Tony. Tony's reviewed it. He's made his revisions. So the good thing about it is not coming out of our pocket because we had a pre-existing easement in this area before TxDOT decided to expand their highways.
And I noticed that our obligation is to transfer to South Lake what TxDOT gives to us.
Correct.
Our obligation is limited to that regardless of their costs.
We have a good attorney that made sure that was in there.
I've heard about the gentleman.
I'm anxious to meet him. We had a conference called today, Lori, Stephen, Mike, and I, with the two representatives, where that was the most substantive discussion about the original draft didn't make clear that the district's payment obligation should be limited to monies received from TxDOT, and they concurred that was the intent of it. We sent them the revised draft this afternoon, and they have signed off on it, so
South Lake or TxDOT, or both?
Oh,
I think
both.
Think of both.
This is the South Lake anyway.
Yeah, it says TxDOT with TxDOT. and
This is just between South Lake and the district,
Okay.
so TxDOT doesn't really need to
Doesn't
sign off
receive,
on this.
okay.
But the overall arrangement, TxDOT has signed off on.
Okay. Vice President Rose?
Motion. I move to approve the interlocal agreement between the City of South Lake and the Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 regarding sanitary sewer line adjustments crossing State Highway 114.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice President Rose to approve the interlocal agreement with this, between the City of South Lake and the Town of Trophy Club related to relocation. Okay,
Not
what you
the-
get?
Not the Town of Trophy Club. Here you go, the mud. That's your next job.
Wow, we're going there. Wow.
One that's at the dais, you're
I'm
putting
sorry?
what's at the dais.
Yes, this is the one that's at today's.
Maybe you want to say that in the motion?
I'm sorry.
There's one in the packet that's
Oh,
incorrect.
I got you, yeah. I need to amend my motion to state that it is the interlocal agreement that is located at the dais as opposed to in the packet.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice President Rose to approve the interlocal agreement with the City of Southlake, and Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 that's presented at the dais for relocation of sanitary sewer lines located in or about 114 in Kirkwood. That's where they're located.
No, I know, but that's not what the title of the document is.
I read the title. Regarding the sanitary sewer line adjustment crossing 114. Are you comfortable with that, Vice President Rose? Thank you. Do I have a
Second.
Second by Secretary Treasurer Flynn. Any discussion?
I'd like to make a discussion here. As I was talking to Mike earlier this morning, we have a expedited time that we have to get the monies once received from TxDOT over to Southlake. And I just wanted to make sure that we're okay making Mike have any kind of authority to go ahead and exceed the funds over to Southlake as soon as we get them in.
What's the time frame?
10 days.
10 days.
So they started out wanting 5 days.
That seems to me more like a operations issue, not a board issue.
Well, I'm just looking at the spending authority. I don't know exactly if it's going to be a lump sum or if it's going to be broken out over
Well,
different
I mean, if
invoices.
they come in, you know, in the first month and they're halfway done and they need a $70,000 check or $100,000 check,
Okay,
that would exceed my spending authority.
okay. I think we would have to either amend your motion or do a separate motion. Because we need to amend it to authorize the acting general manager to transfer any funds received to TxDOT over to Southlake.
That's the amendment.
Okay, are you comfortable with that amendment?
I'll second it.
Okay, second it. Okay, so everyone heard the seconded amendment?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so any discussion? So first, let's vote on that amendment. All right, all in favor of the amendment to the original amendment, indicate by raising your hands. The amendment passes. Now we'll go back to the original motion.
Unanimously.
Passes unanimously. Now we'll go back to the original motion. Does everyone still remember that motion?
Mm-hmm.
Any discussion? All in favor indicate by raising your hand.
Passed unanimously.
Okay, that motion passed unanimously as well to satisfy Vice President Rose. Okay. Item number 9, consider and take appropriate action regarding approval of proposal by CPNY for professional engineering services related to preparation of design and construction documents for a pressure spray system at the wastewater treatment plant facility. Staff.
So when we went out for our bond for our 16-inch water line, this was added in there. We added $200,000 in there for foam control at the wastewater treatment plant. We spent about $50,000 on that for a 6-inch pump at that time. So we have $150,000 left in there for foam control. What we're proposing is this system, CPNY, we've met with them, they've gave us a proposal. It's pretty much another task order proposal, but it does exceed the limit by the GM. So I'm bringing it in front of you guys for foam control for the wastewater plant. It looks like the engineering opinion for the project cost is $90,000. Plus the engineering. So if you add both of those together, it looks like the project will be hopefully around $120,000.
Is that
Although-
in the packet?
It is.
What page is it on?
Starts on page
47.
47.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Vice President Rose?
I know that we have had issues in some of the trains out there with foam. And I know that we brought somebody in to take a look at the foam issue, if I remember correctly. And, you know, analyze it. My question is, when I look at this spray system that we're now talking about, is this a design deficiency from the original plant? I mean, is this foaming issue something that we should have known about and this system been installed in the beginning? Just curious.
I wouldn't say it was a design deficiency. I think it runs back a little bit more to Kubota than CPNY because we have constantly asked Kubota to help us with our foaming issues.
Okay,
We have about 55-gallon drums of chemicals to add
yeah.
to our raw before it goes into our MBRs. I mean, we've asked them a lot of questions and they have not come back with a solution. I will tell you now, we've got a brand new implant water system. I mean, we have water spraying on these basins literally daily, almost 24/7.
Okay. Does it seem to resolve the,
It does help a lot. We also do keep defoamer on hand in case we see something that we don't like, we can dissipate the foam.
okay,
Now, the chemicals, the defoamer itself is very expensive.
yeah,
So we're trying to put this system in to hopefully mitigate all that foam. I mean, the water does help. The spray system, if we get it in there, it's designed right to hit at the right level, the right angle. I think it'll help a lot.
okay.
Question, anyone? Vice President Rose?
It seems that the right side of the dais is working hard this evening.
Every dog has its day.
Yeah. Okay, I move to approve the proposal by CPNY Incorporated for professional engineering services related to the preparation of design and construction documents for a pressure spray system at the wastewater treatment plant facility in an amount not to exceed $29,800. Thank you, sir.
Are we just approving the engineering, or are we approving the,
It's an engineering. Then we'll have to get a bid.
okay, we have a motion by Vice President Rose to approve the proposal by CPNY for professional engineering service related to the preparation of design and construction documents for a pressure spray system for the wastewater treatment plant, not to exceed $29,800. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Director Chapman. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 10, discuss and take appropriate action concerning acting general manager's compensation.
I would like to
Vice
table it.
President Rose?
I would like to table this until after the executive session. It's also in the executive session.
Any issues with tabling item number 10?
Nope.
Okay. Item number 10 is tabled. Item number 11, consider and take appropriate action regarding the January 2020 combined financials and variance report. A, combined financials. B, combined variance.
If you go to the variance report, which I believe is on 148.
Okay.
So there's not a lot going on page 1. A couple issues with fire. Property taxes coming in, they're almost all in right now. We do have a couple, I'll let Stephen explain, the delinquent fire taxes, line item 2 and 3, property taxes, fire, and P&I. So they're small amounts, but they show up as a variance.
That's just because I don't have them budgeted. We don't budget any amount. I'm not sure. There's not a lot of delinquent out there. Some years this would be a negative amount. Some years is a positive amount, just depending on what's remaining out there for prior years. As you can see, this year we were actually negative, I believe, 2 months ago. Now we're currently positive, based on, actually, this last month we were negative. Now we're currently positive this month. So that number fluctuates depending on how many cases get solved throughout what's out there in litigation or back taxes that are due. But as this time of the year is normal, we're right about 90% in taxes coming in. As you know, fire is fully funded by taxes. So after this is when we'll have a little bit extra money in the fire account, but it starts to get used up as we transfer money over to the town for operating expenses and stuff.
Questions about that? If you'll go to the next page, 149, I want to highlight a couple issues. Line item maintenance, repair, and conditions, obviously that's high. Those are the lift station repairs. So we knew that was going to be pretty expensive, and it is, coming in about $5,000 higher. Software and support, those are all expenses up front, which we've done. And the auditing expense, the same 82%, but that's paid as well. So other than that, the variances are fairly minor that I see.
And as far as the maintenance repairs for collections, this is something new that we did this year. Mike and I were talking about, we separated out. We're trying to separate the collection costs from just the wastewater treatment plant costs. So we will make an adjustment on the amendment that comes up here, which would be just taking money that's from the wastewater treatment plant maintenance and repairs and moving it over to the collections. It's still in the same department. It's just a separate line item that we're trying to separate the cost and understand. So it's our first year doing it. We had a fairly large repair at the beginning of the year in October, which I believe was like 5,500. So it put us right at where we are kind of now. So it kind of put us over going into the year. But we'll make the adjustment, but it won't be any different. It'll be a net.
Yeah, the reason why we broke this out is we've got a brand new membrane plant. We wanted to see what we're actually spending in the plant and what we're actually spending in the collection system. So it doesn't, instead of just bundling it all together, and it's like, well, look, this plant's gonna cost us $150,000 a year. We wanted to break that out and say, okay, what are we spending in the collection system for lift station pumps, lift station upgrades, that sort of thing, rather than just dumping it all on the plant and saying, oh, this membrane plant's expensive, it's costing us this much. So we'll get a better feel for what the plant is actually costing us moving forward.
Any other questions? Okay. And I'm going to make a motion here, if I can get back up to the right area. So I move to approve the January 2020 combined financials and variance report. A, combined financials. B, combined variance.
We have a motion by Secretary Treasurer Flynn to approve the January 20 combined financial and combined variance report. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Director Castonway. Any discussion? Hearing none, all indicate. Hearing none, indicate your approval by raise your hand. Motion passes unanimously. All right, we have item number 12. Report from the General Manager's Hiring Committee. Director Castaway, Secretary Treasurer Flynn.
Let me refer to at the dais, you have a couple handouts. Kelly and I were on a call last week, Thursday, Friday, with our group and had a very, very good discussion. Originally, when we first, this has been going on, as you guys know, for probably a couple months, but it was the holidays. I would categorize us getting off to kind of a slow start. However, the applications now and the entire process in general has picked up. So the first, it's a little bit hard to read, but the timeline, there's a lot of dates and a lot of issues on there, but I want to point out a couple for planning purposes. If you go down about a third of the way in red, March 3rd is the first time Kelly and I, well, let me back up. On the 24th is when the last, it will close in terms of candidates. So SGR will have about a week, and then on March 3rd, Kelly and I will meet with Doug here in the Dallas area, or it might even be video conference, I'm not sure. But that is the first kind of go-around, if you will, of the candidates. This was a similar process that we used last time around. But as you drop down then from March 3rd on, the next key date is March 24th. So during this whole process, Kelly and I will kind of whittle down, if you will, the first list of candidates. The expectation is they'll probably come forth with 8 to 10, and we'll get that down to possibly a more manageable number, not necessarily. It could stay there. But the next key date is the 24th. It doesn't say it on this sheet here, but Kelly and I are going to be doing that. What I would propose is to bring Stephen in at that point in time from an HR perspective. And we'll get to the when we bring the board in, which is a little bit lower. So even though it doesn't say that, it seems appropriate to Kelly and I to bring in Stephen at that point. There's work to be done from the 24th, and you come all the way down to April 10th, 13th, or 14th. Once we whittle down these candidates, there's a lot of work being done, internal work. You can kind of see it listed out on the left there, background checks, those types of things, stage 2 interviews and whatnot. The biggest key date for all of us as a board is April 21st and 22nd. So I'd ask you to look at your calendar and see if we can get some time there on the schedules to have back-to-back meetings. Unlike the last time where it was done really in kind of a full day or one day, now this is going to be over a 2-day period. Does anybody see any outstanding problems at the moment with those dates?
Are those going to be public meeting dates or dates that we have to call?
I think they are, yeah. I think we're gonna have to do the same thing we did last time, Lori.
We do have early voting here in the boardroom,
When is that?
which begins on the 20th of April and goes through the 28th. And then election day is May 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
And I will be traveling on the 21st and 22nd.
How long does that go through, Lori?
It begins
It goes through,
on the 20th, on the day of our meeting,
right?
and goes through the 28th, Tuesday the 28th. And then there's a lull from the 29th through the 1st. There's no voting. And then May 2nd is election day.
That said, what does the 29th, 30th, and 1st look like for potential dates if we move it back a week, a little more than a week? Would that suffice for you, Lori, as far as our obligations here?
Yeah, we're open those 3 days
Okay.
here.
So what I'm proposing is looking at the 29th, 30th, and 1st. Does anybody have any
I'm fine.
major issues with that? We're gonna have to work this around. I don't think all of us will have to be here at the same time. We're gonna be here at the same time, don't get me wrong. We'll have to just work around the dates. Sound okay? Okay, what I will do then is get back with them and have them revise that. So again, as we look at it, we've got for about another week, and then we'll get the candidate list. There's a sheet in there which I'm not gonna really talk to or speak to. It's the second sheet. It's actually on the first page, a little bit of an overview on where our candidates are. We have 20 as of last Thursday. And on the second sheet also is a pretty good overview of where SGR has been spending their time and monies and going after in terms of publications, outreach, that sort of thing. You see that at the top of page 2. And then there's some information kind of in the middle or the bottom about the advertising, Facebook, Twitter. So, again, I guess I'd summarize it by saying we started off a little slow, but it's picked up quite a bit lately.
Has any colon begun by SGR?
That won't happen until after it closes on the 24th. Other questions, comments, concerns?
Nice work.
Okay, I'm hopeful.
Okay. Item number 13, General Manager's report.
So the report is in your packet. I will just touch on a few things here. We did not have any main breaks over the last month. no sanitary sewer overflows. For our capital improvements, I know there's been a few people that are interested in the timeline for the building. I added that to this packet. We actually did receive the building last week. They were actually starting construction of it today. It should be about a 3-week project. I know we've got rain and some other stuff coming in this week and this weekend. That may impact the schedule just a little bit, but we are started on it.
Well, that's why you have the roof, so you keep the rain off.
We need the roof up first. So if anybody's got any other questions or,
I have a quick one. Do we have, how long have we been working on that high service pump? This is just from my,
so we have been working on it for quite a little bit longer than what we should
I
have,
know,
but
but I
we
mean-
did have a change order come back.
Yeah.
I mean,
my purpose of asking the question is just to make the point that when you see something on the paper, it says it's gonna take 10 days, don't hold your breath.
2 weeks.
Because this pump has been, I can't believe it. Just,
It's been bad. So started out the motor, the manufacturer did not set the ratchets in the motor, which actually keeps it from spinning backwards. So when we finally got that fixed, the pump can wasn't level enough. We've got that fixed, but we are scheduled for a startup on February 24th. And that got pushed back a little bit because I went on vacation last week and I wouldn't let them start it up when I was gone.
weren't there also issues with the electrical panel and all that were associated with this?
There was.
Yeah, I mean, it just,
Encore was a big holdup. Also, trying to get the transformer from them and jump through hoops for them, it was a long process.
yeah, it's an education. It's an education. Okay, thank you.
I know before this project started, I was working with Encore for 2 years to get that transformer there.
Any other questions or comments? Anybody else on staff?
Well done, the plant looks like it's operating marvelously.
Okay,
Good numbers.
we're now, item 14. It is now 7:43. Pursuant to section 551-071 of the Texas Open Meeting Act, the board may consult with this attorney in the executive session on a matter of which the duty of the attorney of the governmental body under the disciplinary rules of professional conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with the Open Meeting Act, or to seek advice on counsel on legal matters involving pending or contemplated litigation or settlement offers. A, contractor brief, performance and payments related to district's contract with Weber Cadagua Partners for construction of wastewater treatment plant improvements. B, Trophy Club Municipal Utility District Number 1 versus Arcadia Services LLC and the District Court of Tarrant County, 141st District Judicial District, cost number 141-299-351-18. C, potential condemnation of easements required for construction and operation of water transmission line improvements from District Pump Station to elevated water tank located on T.W. King Road. Item number 15 is pursuant to section 551.072 of the Texas Open Meeting Act. The board may deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Deliberations in an open meeting will have a detrimental effect on the position of the governmental body in negotiations with the third person. A, sale or exchange of district real property located at 100 Municipal Drive, 1501 Junction Way, and other real property owned by the district. B, purchase of easements required for construction and operation of water transmission line improvements for district pump station on elevated water tank located on T.W. King Road. 16, pursuant to section 551-074A1 of the Texas Open Meeting Act regarding appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of public officer or employee, acting general manager. It is now 7:44. We will enter into executive session.
Take a break.
Let's take a all break and proceed to the bus. Yeah.
Bathroom break.
Hey, It is now 9:04. We're returning to regular session. Item number 17, consider and take appropriate action on matters deliberated in executive session.
I would also like to join that back up with item, what was that, item 10? Address that issue simultaneously.
Okay. Yeah.
Which
Well,
was-
actually, item number 17 is related to item number 10.
Okay. All right, I have a motion. I move to approve an interim salary supplement for the acting general manager that equates to an annual salary of $160,000 per year.
Okay, we have a motion by Vice President Rose.
Between his current salary and the supplement will equate to 160.
Yeah.
We have a motion by Vice President Rose to provide a supplement for the acting general manager to supplement his salary from his current salary to a salary of $160,000 for fiscal year 2020 during the period of time that he's acting as general manager.
Are you looking for a second?
That'd be nice.
Okay, I second.
We have a second by Director Castanway. Any questions?
Just to clarify, during the period of acting general manager, so just so I understand clarity, if a new general manager comes on July 1st, that would be the date, or whatever
Yes.
the start date of the new acting general manager would be.
Whenever the start date of the new general
Of the new
manager,
general manager, not acting.
then he
new
would no
general-
longer be acting general manager.
I'm clear.
Any other discussion?
Will terminate upon the effective date of the hire of the new GM.
Yes.
Do I need to redo my motion, or is it just in effect?
I'll clarify.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Hear none, all in favor indicate by raising your hand. Motion passes unanimously. Is there anything else? And I don't think there was anything else that required anything else. Future agenda items? Hearing none, our next meeting is scheduled for March 16th, 2020 at 6:30. And it is 9:07. We're going to adjourn the meeting at 9:07. Time.